13 times British royal inbreeding led to shocking consequences. For hundreds of years, marrying for love was not an option for British royals. Keeping the bloodline pure was the priority, even if it meant marrying one's own cousin. But was this quest for purity worth the price? Absolutely not. Today we're cracking open the history books to expose the shocking consequences of royal inbreeding. From fertility struggles to physical ailments, we'll see how these close family ties wreaked havoc on the health of the British monarchy. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. Number 1. Hemophilia in Queen Victoria's Descendants. Queen Victoria, who ruled Britain from 1837 to 1901, unknowingly carried a dangerous genetic mutation, hemophilia. This blood disorder, which prevents blood from clotting properly, became known as the royal disease. Victoria passed it on to her son Leopold, who suffered from the disease, and to some of her daughters, who became carriers. These princesses then married into other royal families across Europe, spreading the disease widely. Hemophilia caused severe problems for those who had it, as even minor cuts or bruises could lead to life-threatening bleeding. The most famous case was probably Alexei, the son of Russia's last Tsar. His hemophilia played a significant role in the fall of the Russian royal family. The spread of this disease through royal families demonstrated the dangers of inbreeding, which allowed harmful genes to be passed down and concentrated in a small group of people. Number 2. Madness of King George III. King George III, who ruled from 1760 to 1820, is often remembered for his bouts of madness. He would sometimes talk nonstop for hours, foam at the mouth, and even try to shake hands with trees, thinking they were people. For a long time, it was believed that he was simply insane. However, modern doctors think he may have had a disease called Porphyria, which affects the body's ability to produce heme, a component of hemoglobin in red blood cells. Porphyria can cause severe abdominal pain, confusion, and even hallucinations. The condition is genetic and could have been exacerbated by inbreeding within the House of Hanover, where marriages between close relatives were common. George's illness had a profound impact on British politics and even played a role in the American Revolution, showing how royal health issues could affect entire nations. Number 3. Porphyria in the royal family. Porphyria, the disease that likely affected King George III, wasn't just his problem. It's believed to have affected several members of the British royal family over the years. This genetic disorder causes a buildup of certain chemicals in the body, leading to a variety of symptoms. Individuals with porphyria can be very sensitive to light, developing painful blisters on their skin when exposed to the sun. They can also suffer from severe stomach pain, muscle weakness, and mental symptoms like anxiety or confusion. Because porphyria is inherited, it was more likely to appear in the royal family due to their frequent marriages between relatives. Some historians believe that the madness seen in several royals over the centuries might actually have been due to porphyria. This demonstrates how inbreeding didn't just affect one generation, but had long-lasting effects on a family's health for many years. Number 4. King Edward VI health issues. King Edward VI, the only son of the famous King Henry VIII, had a short and troubled life, possibly due to royal inbreeding. He became king at just 9 years old, but was never a healthy child. Edward frequently fell ill and suffered from a variety of ailments, including respiratory issues, which some historians believe might have been tuberculosis. His fragile health may have been partly due to the fact that his parents and many of his ancestors were closely related. Inbreeding can weaken the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to illnesses. Edward's mother, Jane Seymour, was also Henry VIII's third cousin, which did not help matters. Despite receiving the best medical care available at the time, Edward's health continued to deteriorate. He died at the age of 15 without the opportunity to rule independently or have children. His early death led to a crisis in the royal succession, highlighting how the health problems caused by inbreeding could have a significant effect on an entire country. Number 5. Physical and mental disabilities in George III's siblings. King George III wasn't the only one in his family to suffer from health problems. Several of his brothers and sisters also dealt with various physical and mental issues, further evidence of the harmful effects of royal inbreeding. For example, George's younger brother, Prince Edward, Duke of York and Albany, was sickly throughout his short life, dying at just 28 years old. Another brother, Prince William Henry, Duke of Gloucester and Edinburgh, experienced a range of health problems and was described as backward in his development. George's sister, Princess Caroline Matilda, who became Queen of Denmark, was said to have mental health issues. She was eventually banished from Denmark after a scandal, possibly related to her erratic behavior. These widespread health problems within one generation of the royal family suggest underlying genetic issues. The practice of marrying within a small group of royal and noble families increased the likelihood of harmful genes being passed down and expressed in offspring, creating a cycle where each generation of royals became more at risk for various health problems, both physical and mental. Number 6. Insanity of King James II's descendants. King James II, who ruled England in the late 17th century, left a troubling legacy in his family line. Many of his descendants, including his grandson King George III, showed signs of mental instability and illness. This pattern of mental health issues wasn't just a coincidence. It was likely the result of generations of inbreeding among European royals. James II's son, James Francis Edward Stuart, known as the Old Pretender, was said to suffer from depression and mood swings. His grandson Charles Edward Stuart, Bonnie Prince Charlie, became increasingly unstable and alcoholic in his later years. This trend continued down the line, culminating in the well-known episodes of madness experienced by George III, the recurring mental health being passed down and concentrated through royal marriages. This situation highlights how the practice of keeping power within a small group of families could have serious consequences for the individuals involved and for the stability of the monarchy itself. Number 7. Infertility and miscarriages. One of the less visible but equally devastating effects of royal inbreeding was the high rate of infertility and miscarriages among royal couples. This problem affected many royal families across Europe, including the British royals. Queen Anne, for example, had 17 pregnancies, but only one child survived infancy, and that child died before reaching adulthood. Similarly, Mary, Queen of Scots, experienced several miscarriages and stillbirths. These weren't isolated cases. Many royal women struggle to have healthy children. The reason likely lies in the genetic consequences of inbreeding. When closely related people have children, there's a higher chance of genetic defects. These defects can make it harder to conceive, increase the risk of miscarriage, or lead to health problems in babies that do survive. For royal families, where producing an heir was crucial for succession, these fertility issues could cause major problems. The pressure to have children, combined with the increased difficulty in doing so, added significant stress to royal marriages and could even lead to political crisis if no heir was produced. Number 8. Epilepsy in the British royals. Epilepsy, a neurological disorder that causes seizures, appeared more frequently in the British royal family than in the general population. This higher incidence of epilepsy is another likely consequence of royal inbreeding. Several members of the royal family were known or suspected to have epilepsy, including King Edward V and his brother Richard, the princes in the Tower, and possibly Queen Victoria's grandson, Prince John. Epilepsy can have a genetic component, and inbreeding increases the chances of inheriting genes that might cause the condition. In an era when epilepsy was poorly understood and often seen as a form of madness or divine punishment, having this condition could be particularly challenging for royals. It could affect their ability to rule, their public image, and even their chances of inheriting the throne. Prince John, for example, was largely kept out of the public eye due to his epilepsy and possible developmental issues. The prevalence of epilepsy in the royal family serves as another example of how the practice of marrying within a small group could lead to the concentration of genetic disorders. Number 9. Facial deformities in the Tudor line. The Tudor dynasty, which ruled England from 1485 to 1603, showed signs of various physical issues. including facial deformities. These problems were likely the result of the limited genetic pool from which Tudor monarchs and their spouses came. One of the most notable examples was King Henry VIII, who was described as having a massive jaw that became more pronounced as he aged. Some historians believe he may have suffered from McLeod syndrome, a condition that can affect the muscles, blood cells, and sometimes the brain, potentially contributing to his erratic behavior and difficulty in fathering male heirs. His son Edward VI was described as having a wry neck and other physical peculiarities. These physical traits passed down through generations of royal inbreeding weren't just cosmetic issues. They could affect a monarch's health, their ability to produce heirs, and even their public image. In an era when physical appearance was often seen as a reflection of divine favor or the right to rule, these deformities could potentially undermine a monarch's authority. The presence of these traits in multiple members of the Tudor line demonstrates how inbreeding could lead to the concentration and expression of genetic quirks and disorders. Number 10. Infertility issues in Henry VIII's wives. King Henry VIII is famous for his 6 wives, but the story behind his many marriages is more complex than just a search for love. A major factor was the struggle to produce a male heir, which was partly due to genetic issues likely caused by royal inbreeding. Henry fathered many children with his wives, but most were either stillborn or died in infancy. His first wife, Catherine of Aragon, had 6 pregnancies, but only one child, Mary, survived to adulthood. Anne Boleyn had 3 pregnancies, resulting in Elizabeth I and 2 miscarriages. Jane Seymour gave birth to Edward VI, who was sickly and died young. These patterns suggest underlying fertility problems. Modern scientists theorize that Henry may have had a rare blood type that caused his wives' bodies to reject male fetuses. This condition, combined with genetic issues from generations of royal inbreeding, made it very difficult for Henry to father healthy sons. The pressure to produce an heir led Henry to keep changing wives, which had profound impacts on English politics and religion. This situation illustrates how genetic problems from inbreeding could affect not just individuals, but the course of a nation's history. Number 11. Mental instability in the Stuart line. The Stuart line, which ruled England, Scotland, and Ireland at various points from 1371 to 1714, was known for significant mental health problems. This trend was likely influenced by the limited genetic diversity due to royal inbreeding. King James I, the first Stuart to rule England, was described as having a nervous disposition and possible learning difficulties. His son Charles I was stubborn to the point of irrationality, which contributed to the English Civil War. James II, as mentioned earlier, passed down mental instability to his descendants. Even Mary, Queen of Scots, was said to suffer from severe mood swings. These mental health issues weren't just personal problems for the royals. They affected how these monarchs ruled, sometimes leading to poor decisions that had serious consequences for their kingdoms. The consistent appearance of these issues across generations of Stuarts suggests a genetic component, likely exacerbated by the practice of marrying within a small group of royal families. This pattern demonstrates how the effects of inbreeding could accumulate over time, potentially weakening a royal line's ability to govern effectively. Number 12. Congenital issues in the Hanoverians. The Hanoverian dynasty, which included British monarchs from George I to George IV, 1714 to 1830, exhibited various congenital health issues linked to their inbred ancestry. One common problem was porphyria, the disease that affected George III. However, there were other issues too. George II had a history of sudden rage that might have been related to a genetic condition. His son Frederick, Prince of Wales, died suddenly at 44, possibly due to a pulmonary embolism, which can have genetic risk factors. George IV was known for his obesity and possible gout, both of which can have genetic components. These health problems weren't just coincidences. They were likely the result of generations of marriages between closely related individuals. The Hanoverians, like many royal families, often married their cousins or other relatives to keep power within the family. While this practice helped them maintain their royal status, it also concentrated harmful genes, leading to a range of health issues. These problems affected not just the royals themselves, but also their ability to rule effectively and produce healthy heirs, showing how genetic health could have far-reaching political consequences. Number 13. Queen Anne's many pregnancies and losses. Queen Anne's reproductive history is a particularly tragic example of the effects of royal inbreeding. Anne ruled Britain from 1702 to 1714, and during her life she was pregnant 17 times. However, only one of these pregnancies resulted in a child who survived infancy, and even this child, Prince William, Duke of Gloucester, died at age 11. The rest of Anne's pregnancies ended in miscarriages, stillbirths, or the death of the infant shortly after birth. This pattern of pregnancy loss and infant mortality was likely due to a combination of factors, including genetic issues stemming from royal inbreeding. Anne herself was the product of a first cousin marriage, and she married her second cousin. This close genetic relationship increased the chances of harmful recessive genes being expressed in their children. The tragedy of Anne's many lost children has significant political implications. When her last surviving child died, it became clear that the Stuart line would end with Anne. This led to the passage of the Act of Settlement, which brought the Hanoverian dynasty to the British throne. And there you have it, folks, 13 shocking consequences of British royal inbreeding. From mad kings to vanquishing dynasties, we've seen how the quest for pure royal blood led to some pretty messy situations. But what do you think? Was keeping the crown in the family worth all these genetic headaches? Or should royals have branched out sooner? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about history's wildest secrets, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And while you're at it, don't forget to ring that notification bell too so you never miss our latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye!